Hello folks, and welcome back to my channel. It is another day and another video where I attempt to discuss very adult piercing concepts without getting my video taken down off of YouTube. Can we do it? Let's find out. A few months ago, I did a deep dive video on triangle piercings and specifically how they work for folks who are trans masc or trans men. And since then, I've gotten a lot of comments and requests to cover more gender affirming piercings in depth. Since we talked about stuff for trans masc last time, we gotta talk about something for my trans femmes this time, and we are starting with the quintessential, the ever popular, the Prince Albert piercing today. This is an adult piercing on Adult Anatomy, and we're going to be having some adult conversations, so if that is not something that you want to watch, please skip on this video now. To start, what is a Prince Albert piercing? So a Prince Albert piercing is a piercing that enters through the thin tissue at the base of the head, through the shaft of the penis, and exits through the urethra. I'm going to throw up a very simplified diagram because once again, we are trying not to get my account taken down. We are tempting the YouTube gods today. But yes, I'm going to throw up a little diagram that kind of shows you what the piercing looks like and gives you an idea for how it works. Now, something too important to remember with this piercing is that when you're looking at this piercing from the outside, it looks like this, and it seems like it's pierced through a lot of tissue and can be really intimidating for a lot of people. But when we consider the reality of this piercing, because it's pierced into the urethra, it's actually pierced through very little tissue, like this. And these are actually some of the most easiest to get, easiest to heal penile genital piercings. They're really good healers. They're relatively easy to pierce. Feedback from most of my clients is that they had worse experiences getting their nipples pierced. So across the board, a pretty easy piercing. Exact placement on a Prince Albert is going to vary based off your anatomy, your goals, the equipment that we're working with. In general, it's going to be somewhere along the base of the head and exit through the urethra. And a key factor in Prince Albert piercings is that they do bisect and enter the urethra. And this has a lot of pros, especially when we're talking about in a trans femme context, but it has some cons too. So now that we've introduced the piercing, we have an understanding of what the piercing is and where it goes, let's get into all of the nitty-gritty details. Now, whenever we talk about things like genital piercings, and specifically Prince Albert piercings, most folks' first question is why? Why does someone want that? Why does someone want to get that? And in general, the answer when we're talking about most genital piercings is function. They're really functional. PA piercings feel really good for the wearer and for the wearer's partner. For the person who has the PA, it can create stimulation within the urethra, which can create new sensations, new feelings, and just kind of make activities feel more interesting. A lot of people really enjoy the sensation of the weight of the jewelry and the heft of the jewelry. They find that that feeling can be really, really enjoyable, and with different styles of jewelry, from curved barbells to circulars to captives, the movement of the jewelry around the head feels really great for a lot of folks. And the jewelry also feels really great for partners. It can hit all of the right spots and create a different texture, it can create a different temperature, it can create a different sensation. It can just make things feel a lot more intense for the partner. Now, I've talked about this at length in other videos here on my channel and on my blog, but not everyone is going to enjoy piercings the same way. So as per usual, anytime we're talking about any piercing, but especially genital piercings, it always comes with a caveat that while it's super functional and amazing and great for a lot of people and their partners, it might be uncomfortable or painful or just not really do much for some other people and their partners. So please bear that in mind when you're thinking about getting any kind of genital piercing done. Your mileage may vary, your body may not like it as much, something to think about. Now, when we talk about function with PA piercings, there's obviously so much to talk about with urethral stimulation and different sensations, but the coolest function with this piercing has to happen for my trans femme clients. And this is particularly specific to folks who are taking estrogen. See, a side effect of taking estrogen can be shrinkage of the genital area. The testes shrink up, the penis itself can shrink up, that tissue changes, and sometimes with that comes a loss of function. Clients who have been on estrogen for a very long time may find that they struggle to get and maintain erections thanks to the decrease in testosterone in their body that comes with taking estrogen. This factor can be a really major factor for a lot of trans femme and trans women to not start estrogen or start on lower dosages, because it is concerning to think that your sex life may change completely. While we know it's well documented that the sensations of sex absolutely change from hormone replacement therapy, like taking testosterone or estrogen, we also very well know that taking estrogen can definitely decrease genital function. With PA piercings, they can create a new and unique sensation that furthers some of the sensory differences that come from taking estrogen, and a lot of folks find that the new pleasure and the new sensation that comes from these piercings actually helps them maintain function throughout taking estrogen. So I've had multiple clients who either had PA piercings before they started HRT or got piercings pretty early on in their transition, who found that because of the sensation the piercing gives them, that allows them to keep and maintain erections. That new sensation really allows things to stay much more functional in that region than it would be otherwise. I've even had a few clients who have been on estrogen for a very long time and lost a lot of that sensation or function, come in and get PA piercings and find that some of that sensation and function returns to them. So this piercing, if you are trans femme and you are struggling perhaps with not being able to get or maintain erections, or things just not feeling the same or as good as they did before, and you're just kind of looking for something to change it up, especially if you're not planning on bottom surgery, a PA piercing might be an amazing tool for you to regain sensation and function that you may have lost, or explore entirely brand new sensations and functions that this piercing can give. When we talk about gender-affirming piercings and gender-affirming body modifications, I genuinely think that one of the most amazing things we can do is help trans femme folks who are on estrogen maintain genital function and happiness and satisfaction with their sex life, and this piercing is one of the really concrete ways we can do that, and I just think that is like the coolest thing ever. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this piercing bisects the urethra. So let's take a look at this diagram again. As you'll notice, it's pierced through a very, very, very minute amount of tissue at the base of the head. It looks like it's pierced through a lot because, as we know, it's going into that urethra. But the fact that it bisects the urethra does usually mean that it affects urination. And this is a conversation that I have to have with all of my clients getting a PA, where I let them know that once this is fully healed, things may be a little bit messier. Now, it's not a guarantee that things are going to be messier every single time just because you have a PA, and I have plenty of clients who get this piercing and don't really notice any change in going to the bathroom. But I have just as many clients who now make a little bit of a mess, and they either need to hold their jewelry in a certain position to prevent a mess, do what I like to call the PA lean, or sit to go to the bathroom. And here is where this piercing gets really amazing for a lot of my trans femme folks. One of my phenomenal clients, Happy, actually wrote an entire guest article for my blog about this. I'm going to throw it up and I'm going to link it in the comments. But for a lot of trans femmes and trans women, going to the bathroom can be one of the most stressful parts of your day-to-day activities. No matter how long you've been out for, no matter how well you pass, even though we know passing doesn't matter, bathrooms are a heated and debated topic, and it can be very hard to feel safe and comfortable going into the bathroom and using the bathroom that aligns with your gender. There's literally a chronic issue with trans folks developing kidney infections and permanent health problems from not using the bathroom in public because they don't feel safe in either restroom. And a big part of this can sometimes be the mentality that comes along with it. For a lot of my trans femme clients, even if they pass, even if they've been out for years, they still somehow feel like they're faking it when they go and sit in the stall in a female bathroom, even though that's absolutely the restroom they belong in. With a PA piercing, because of the mess that it can cause during urination, because it bisects the urethra, a lot of clients who have a PA end up needing to sit to urinate. It's simply a lot less messy and a lot easier. And I cannot quite put into words, as it is not my lived experience, the amount of euphoria and comfort and safety I've seen PA piercings bring to trans women and my trans femme clients who now have a reason and a need and a necessity to sit to urinate. And Happy just says it better than I can. Got to read their blog post on my website about it because it is beautiful, it is articulate, and it is so unbelievably powerful. But this is a piercing that for a lot of folks, besides the fact that it brings in really great function, really can enhance sex life, and can keep people functional longer while they're taking HRT, or even forever while they're taking HRT for some clients. Not only that, but the amount of safety and legitimacy that this can give to an action that most folks take for granted in their day-to-day, using a bathroom, is unparalleled. And I am just speechless and honored that I get to do these piercings for folks and provide them with this experience that they find to be so gender affirming and so empowering, and help to create safety and comfort in what for some trans women can be some of the most stressful and difficult parts of their day. So we absolutely cannot talk about this without acknowledging the amazing pro that the messy urination can cause with PAs for trans femmes. It's amazing. Very, very empowering. I'm just, I get like emotional just talking about it, because I just love that we get to do this, that I get to do this and bring this kind of gender euphoria and this kind of impact into people's lives. So that is a huge element when we're talking about PA piercings for trans femme folks. Those are our two main whys when it comes to getting this piercing, with function really being the predominant one. So most folks' question after why do people get this done goes into the logistics of getting something like this done. So what does it look like to actually go in and get a PA piercing done? Well, generally you're going to go into a studio, you'll do a consultation with a piercer, so they'll take you into a private space, they'll have you disrobe, they'll check over your anatomy, see if you have the anatomy for this piercing. It is anatomy dependent, and if you do have the anatomy, we'll go from there. Now, when we're talking about anatomy, there's definitely a lot to consider between someone who's intact and someone who's circumcised. I really go in depth about this in my blog post about PA piercings, so if you want to learn more about proper anatomy for PAs, I'm going to link that blog in the comments down below, and it's a very, very in-depth one. After the consultation, you'll go back up front, usually fill out your paperwork, you'll go over jewelry choices. For the most part, PAs are going to start with pretty basic jewelry, so that way they're easy to heal with. It's usually going to be a captive bead ring or a circular barbell. Very occasionally I'll start these with curves, but it's pretty situationally dependent. I personally tend to prefer starting them with captives or circulars. I just find they heal better on a lot of anatomies, but your piercer should go over that with you. Then you'll head back into the piercing room and it'll be time for the piercing to actually happen. And everyone's big question is, do you have to be erect to get a piercing like this? And the answer is no. The answer is never. The answer is you should never have a piercer tell you that you need to have an erection in the piercing room. That is always inappropriate. It is never, ever necessary. We are able to adjust and manipulate this tissue without needing anything to be erect, and in fact, trying to get an erection in a situation where you know someone is about to quite literally stab you in that body part is usually not very easy for most folks. So that is usually the biggest urban legend I hear people ask about. You do not need to be erect for this piercing. In fact, we don't want you to be. It's a huge red flag if a piercer tells you you have to be. I would leave immediately if that happens. We'll bring you into the piercing room, we'll clean and mark the area, the piercer will discuss marks with you if you'd like, and then the piercing itself takes less than a second. Again, remember the diagrams that we showed earlier. This piercing goes through a very, very thin amount of tissue. So while it looks like it's going through a whole lot from the outside, it's really pierced through the tiniest bit. A lot of my clients have said that getting nipple piercings are worse, and most of my clients have said that catching yourself in your fly is way worse. I think most folks have been there and know exactly what that feels like and how unpleasant it is. But the piercing itself, usually very quick and definitely uncomfortable, but not the end of the world to get pierced. Now, once the piercing is done, something to be mindful with this piercing is that they do tend to bleed a lot. My favorite joke when I'm working on trans women and trans femmes is that congratulations, it's your first period. And girl, you've got a heavy flow. PAs bleed a lot for typically the first couple of days to about the first week. You might be sent home bandaged. I really like pads for after a PA for clients of any gender identity. They are designed to absorb blood, and boy howdy do they do a good job of that task. Since PA piercings can be so bleedy, wearing a pad in your underwear for a couple of days is definitely probably your best bet to just keep things clean. So I usually suggest wearing that or some kind of gauze or some kind of something to protect your clothing for the first few days, and after about the first week that bleeding will subside and healing tends to be pretty straightforward from there. My other big tip for getting the piercing is everyone's always wondering if you have to shave or trim or do anything down there. You do not, but I am going to suggest being really careful with hair removal for the first 2 months. So if you're someone who prefers to shave or wax, I would maybe shave or wax a day or two before your piercing, since you're going to kind of want to leave things alone for about the first month just to be careful. But you don't need to do any hair removal down there. And then another thing to know about getting this piercing is that for the first week or so, some burning and discomfort during urination is very normal because of your fresh piercing. And if that is a problem that you encounter, you can take like a shallow Ziploc container and fill it with warm water and submerge everything and urinate into that. And then please rinse everything off well afterwards. Please clean it afterwards. But that will help kind of soothe that burning sensation during urination. And again, that typically goes away after about the first week. Other than that, these tend to be some of the easiest healing piercings that folks have. Again, it's pierced through a very small amount of tissue. It's a very vascular area. We've got great blood flow. We've got great blood supply. Tends to heal in about 3 to 5 months. Healing can be prolonged if you're on estrogen, so you might be looking at more like a 6 to 9 month heal. But in the grand scheme of things, most clients would trade healing a PA for healing just about any cartilage piercing on their ears, because cartilage tends to heal pretty poorly. So this can be a really easy healer for a lot of folks. Once it's fully healed, the sky is the limit. There is so much fun jewelry. There are so many different fun things that you can do with these piercings, and obviously they're incredibly functional piercings, so there's a lot to experiment with when it comes to function. And while the primary function we discussed earlier comes from direct stimulation during activities, this piercing also has a huge and storied history in gay, leather, and fetish communities, and there is so much that is possible within those spaces with these piercings. I would probably need to do a whole nother video just to cover all of it, because as it is, this video is already going to be kind of long. There's a lot that you can do to experiment with this piercing once it's fully healed to provide all sorts of different functions, all sorts of different sensations. And overall, the feedback on this piercing tends to be incredibly, incredibly positive. Like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, every piercing, but especially genital piercings, is kind of a your mileage may vary thing. Everyone's preferences on different sensations and different acts are obviously going to be different. That's why they're preferences. But for the most part, people love PA piercings. And they tend to be really positive experiences. But what I really love is the unique way this particular piercing can provide so much more for trans women and the trans community. There is something so incredibly powerful about the fact that a single piercing can be the difference for some folks between losing sensation on estrogen and complete changes in their sex life when they take HRT. It's also incredible the way what is normally considered a negative side effect of PAs, which is the mess during urination, can become a huge positive for trans folks and become this really empowering thing that provides a lot of safety and a lot of affirmation in what is otherwise an oftentimes very stressful and uncomfortable situation. I've said it before on my channel and I'll say it again, piercings can be such a phenomenal way of customizing your body and specifically your genitalia as part of the process of your transition and part of helping you feel at home in your body, comfortable in your body, and also providing really functional elements to your transition. If you are someone who has been thinking about a PA piercing or is wondering about a PA piercing, I really hope that this video can help shed some clarity and answer some questions, and my inbox is always open if there's other stuff that you'd like to know. And for all of my wonderful, amazing trans women and trans femmes at home watching this, I love you, I adore you, you are so seen and so appreciated, and excited to get to share this piercing that I think can be so beneficial to this part of our community. You probably already guessed it, but this video is sponsored by Plume Gender affirming healthcare. I could not make all of the educational trans content that I make without Plume backing me up. They are one of the most amazing resources to receive gender affirming care online, and if you've been thinking about starting HRT, specifically estrogen, they make the process incredibly easy with trans-friendly and trans-inclusive staff of nurses, doctors, and care coordinators, easily accessible online communication between all of your care providers, and they even work with you for things like surgical letters, confirmation letters, and name change work. I really hope y'all enjoyed this review on PA piercings and how they work for trans femme folks. And if there's other piercings you'd like to see me take a deep dive on, especially through the lens of how they can be beneficial for trans clients, let me know in the comments down below. This is like my favorite subject matter to talk about. And yeah. I had so much fun making this. I can't wait to sit down and hang out with y'all again soon. As per usual, your support means the world to me. If you like this content and you like the content that I'm putting out, please hit like or subscribe. That's how I can keep making more really awesome gender-affirming content for y'all. As per usual, it was wonderful sitting down and chatting, and I'm sure we'll hang out again soon. Have an awesome rest of your day. Bye!